Championship this year. We'll hope the players are feeling strong and ready to take on the challenge of Whistling Straits. Gary Williams recently sat down with two of the golf industry's best to share their expertise.
Okay, thank you very much. It's always great to have Dr. Suppiah, a resident physician here on Golf Channel, also the professor and the good Dr. Valiante when it comes to the mind of athletes. It's a major championship week, and there are enormous demands put on these players, body and mind. You both believe in the science of what nerves can do to the body. Let's start with the body. How does it manifest itself? I mean, when we're talking about pressure and anxiety and all those things, what happens?
Okay, so let's put it under the umbrella of athletic performance anxiety, also known as stage fright. Mm-hmm. Okay, what happens there is it's how we respond to stress, and there's two parts to it. The first part occurs in the brain. Okay, and in the brain there's two parts. There's the frontal part of the brain, which makes a statement. I have a putt. Okay, and then from there, that statement gets taken to the amygdala. Okay, that area of the brain adds music and meaning and everything else to that statement. Okay, from there, it goes down to the spinal cord. And that's where we start feeling the external signs of stress, depending on what the story is. And that's governed by two sets of nerves, the sympathetic nervous system, which is the flight and fright response, okay, and the parasympathetic, which is the more calming, resting and digesting. So if you think about it, it's a bit like, having the gas pedal and the brakes. Mm-hmm. The sympathetic is the gas pedal and the parasympathetic is the brakes. So this is how it would typically play out. Okay, I have a putt to make, frontal lobe. That gets sent to the amygdala, which then says, if I don't make this putt, I may never win this championship again. Okay, and that now creates a story that is apprehensive, fear, anxiety. That comes down, fires off the sympathetic nervous system, which then manifests as rapid heart rate, pounding heart, trembling hands, sweaty palms, dry mouth, blurry vision, all those things, which is not conducive to playing golf. And then that goes back and affects the brain, and you can't focus, you make bad decisions.
When you listen to all this, Gio, and you're trying to get players prepared to have a clear mind and a confident mind, what sticks out with what he was just talking about?
And Ara and I have been talking for years about all this stuff, and we team up on players and so forth. But the word for, F-O-R, for, when we talk about adding meaning to a putt, so you ask the player, hey, can you make a 3-foot putt? Well, of course. Can you make a 3-foot putt for eagle, for 61, for 59, to win the U.S. Open? So what I'm often trying to teach my players is be careful when the word for pops up into a shot. This is a shot for the championship. Because as you add layers of meaning, I always go back to Webb Simpson. When he won that U.S. Open, the way that tournament had unfolded, he wasn't really in contention, but then he found himself in contention. And when the meaning hit him, he said the weight of it was almost too much. So he had to sort of, grind it into the clubhouse. But it's interesting. These players, can you hit a drive straight? Sure. Can you hit a drive straight on the 72nd hole at the U.S. Open? Those last 3 holes that Justin Rose did to win at Marion, right? Yeah. Unbelievable, the composure he showed.
Remarkable.
Yeah, just remarkable, the shots that he
There's a photo of him on 18 as he hits it right after the ball's gone on his drive. And there's no tension in his face. Unbelievable.
You know what's interesting is there are certain things that you talk about that really do strike me and resonate, and interpretation is one. I'm in the business of having human conversation, and it's up to me to interpret things that I'm hearing from you and from others. Interpretation is a big thing with you. Explain why.
Well, so let's show a picture of Cindy Crawford. This is a story I often tell people who ask me, what is reality? If you take a young girl, a middle school girl, with you ask, what is that on her face? Then I do this with people quite often. Is it a mole or is it a beauty mark? Now imagine a 12 or a 13-year-old girl walking around school, and her parents have told her, it's a beauty mark. And all of a sudden you interpret this as a sign of beauty. You feel pretty good about yourself. The opposite is, maybe kids or your sister, and her sister used to actually tease her and call it her ugly mark. right? So her parents would say it's your beauty mark, but her sister would teach her it's an ugly mark. That very same thing, it's just a mark, interpreted differently, manifests. So you're either walking trying to hide it, or you're walking tall and feeling proud of yourself and feeling like a peacock, and that's confidence. And then it starts showing up in all the ways that Ara described, the physiology. You're either in a social situation thinking, boy, I feel good about myself, or I feel bad about myself. So it isn't the actual thing, it's the interpretation of the event that becomes the psychological reality of the individual.
You've talked about Jordan Spieth and some of the things you've heard him say. Here he is going into this week, and he has a chance to win his third major this year. You went back to something he said last year, and it was his own interpretation that struck you.
Yeah, so he's remarkable. He's got the mind of a Jack Nicklaus, and Ara and I were talking about it in the break. It's not since Tiger Woods that somebody has drawn Ara and I to the TV that we want to watch everything he does, not even Rory. So we have a graphic here, and this is Psychology 101, right? And so I asked the viewers, what do you see when you look at this picture? And if you show this picture to people around springtime, they can say, oh, I see a bunny rabbit, right? So you can see the bunny rabbit and you see the eye facing one way. If you show this around autumn, people say, oh, I see a duck. And so what happens is the brain gets primed to see certain things. So that's why reality is an ever-changing thing. Reality itself is a benign, neutral thing. But individuals' reality is always what they take from an event. And so it's to a degree, not the thing itself, it's what you're looking at, what you're taking from it. And when Jordan Spieth shows up to events right now, it's what he said on the Saturday night of the U.S. Open, it blew my mind. He said, my only job right between now and when I teed off on Sunday, because there were 4 players, I think at 4 under par, said to convince myself that I should be the one holding that trophy. In other words, he's taking a proactive stance at defining his own reality. That's only the legends do that.
Fully responsible for everything that he does.
It's amazing.
Well, how do you control the body and the mind when you're in these pressure situations? And it's not just the best players in the world trying to win the final major of the year. We will have more with both of them later. It's good to have the doctor and the doctor with us.
It certainly is, Charlie. Well, Jordan Spieth, one guy who's only 22 years old and seems to have so much control of the body and mind playing stress-free, is Jordan Spieth, the world #2, looking for #1 ranking this week. Michael Breed is going to join us later on to talk about what he spoke with Cameron McCormick about, the longtime swing instructor of Jordan Spieth. We'll be